Welcome to Study Guide 5. Very excited about this week. This will be our last week before we have our midterm exam, so we're ramping up. Hard to believe we're almost halfway through the semester already. Here we are. I want you to read full life chapter 5, but again, don't do the exercises. Do the exercises here. Review the vocabulary 1 to 100. You'll need, and I'll just add it here, learn the new vocab 101 to 125, and read and translate as much as you can of Genesis 1 to 8, and we'll go over all these things together. So this is vocab 101 to 125. I'll do the vocab also on the PowerPoint, and I'll link it on the website and upload it to YouTube as well. But we'll just go over it here. Rosh is head or chief. Gadol is great. Yerushalayim is Jerusalem. Notice Yerushalayim is a dual, defectively written dual. Ma is what? Who is he, and he is she, and me is who, and dog is fish. And you say, what? Ma? So that'll give you 5 things if you can remember that. Tavek is midst. I'm most familiar with this word when it has the preposition before it. Betok is how you'll see it, in the midst of, betok. But tavek is the noun form. Ne'um, I'm most familiar with in the phrase Ne'um Adonai, says the Lord. Some people seem to treat this not as a verb, but like it's the word utterance. So I don't know which one will help you remember. The normal phrase is to have this in God's name. So either one of these will be right. Kol is sound or voice. Sheba is 7. Shaul is Saul. What's interesting about this word is literally it means the ask for one, and Saul was asked for as king. Tahat is under, and we've had that from Genesis 1. Bayin, Bain, Bain Hahoshek. So in between, we've already had that. Adonai, this is a replacement for the tetragrammaton in spoken word. And literally, this ending I is actually the plural, my lords. My Lord would be Adoni, and that occurs in the text. And Adonai is used of like the angels in Genesis 18. Sarah calls Abraham Adonai, but it is plural. You'll translate it the Lord, but it's literally my lords. Mea is 100. Adam is the word Adam, but it also can mean human being or humanity. So proper names don't have definite articles, but this does have a definite article, Ha-Adam. So do you do it as Adam? Do you do it as humanity? But when you learn it, you learn both those things. Cherev is sword. A different pointing. Horeb is the other name for Mount Sinai, which it means something like Mount of Destruction or something like that. Kodesh is something holy or holiness. Kadosh we've already seen in Ezekiel 36. Mizbeah is altar, so Zabach is the word for sacrifice, and this is the noun form of it. Na is an article of entreaty. Please now do this, often directed toward God. Arba is for, so Kiriath Arba is the village of four. So this is our number. Ata is now. So the difference between you, Ata, and Ata, with the aleph, it's you. With the ayin, it's now. So that'll be hard, but if you can make that distinction. Yarad is to go down. I think the name of the Jordan River is actually related to this word, that it goes down from the higher mountains to the Dead Sea. Anoki, we're familiar with already. Yam, we're familiar with from Genesis 1. Aish is fire. I don't know if the word woman, Isha, is related to the word fire. That may help you remember it. There is one text where there's a text variant issue, and it describes human sexuality as the fire of Yahweh. And I don't know if those are related or not, but that's always helped me remember this word, that Aish and Isha. So Aish is fire and Isha is woman. And Nephal is fall. So if you can remember the Nephilim are the fallen ones, it'll help you remember that word. All right, so we want to, let me just pause this. So we want to review these forms. I'll hyperlink this practice to the practice sheet, and you're welcome to print that out and practice. But katal, katala, katalta, katalt, katalti, katalu. You can't repeat it again. Most people don't. I repeat it, katalu, kataltim, kataltin, katalnu. That's going to be your call perfect. And then the easier one, imperfect, yiktol, tiktol, tiktol, tiktali, ektol, yiktalu, tiktolna, got the accent, tiktalu, tiktolna, two accents here, niktol. In terms of nouns, what we're adding this week, we're reviewing this. Susaim, Susim, Susa, Susathaim, Susoth. What we're adding is the definite article. So if we want to say the horse, we're already a little familiar with this. It's hasus. Now, that's how most words will work. But when you get to gutturals, aleph, hey, het, ayin, and resh, those gutturals won't accept a doubling dagesh. And so some of them will lengthen the patah to a komets. And so instead of the doubling, you'll get this lengthening. For some reason, with hays and hets, you don't get the lengthening, and people will talk about a virtual doubling, but with hays and hets, you don't have the dagesh, but you don't have the lengthening. And with resh, you don't have the dagesh, but you do have the lengthening. So just know that with the definite article, if you can't put the doubling dagesh in the next letter, then oftentimes you'll lengthen that. Now, I want you to begin to try to memorize Genesis 1, Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim va'et ha'aretz. See how much of that you can write out. see if you can write it out perfectly. You'll be amazed at how much this is going to reinforce what you're learning. Now, we do want to look through and translate as much as we can of Genesis 1, 1 to 8. And I've just included this little fun sheet of kind of facts about Genesis 1, 1 to 8. And in fact, Genesis 1 totally. So one, we've already talked about that Moses calls the 10 Commandments the 10 words, the Asheret HaDevarim, and 10 times in our text it says Vayomer Elohim. Vayomer Elohim, God said, let there be light, let there be a rakia, let there be a separation, let dry land appear. And notice, every single one of them is the same except 9, where God's talking to people. And it says, and to them Elohim said. So that's an interesting thing. It's interesting that every day has an evening and morning. There was evening, there was morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, day, day, day. The 7th day has no evening and morning. That's interesting. It's also interesting that it isn't day 1, day 2. Actually, in Hebrew, it's day 1, which is your cardinal. And then these are our ordinals. A 2nd day, a 3rd day, a 4th day, a 5th day. And then you can see from our very lesson today, you have the 6th day, the 6th day, the 6th day. And somehow when I converted this, it got this out of whack. But you can see that all of these are the same. The 6th day, the 7th day, the 7th day, the 7th day. So that you have a pattern, and then you have what looks like a violation of that pattern, and you wonder why that is. And then this one is, a lot of people have noticed, God saw, God saw, God saw, God saw Kitov, that it was good, Kitov, 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 Tov Me'od, very good. God said, it is lo tov, it is not good, that man be alone. And then Eve is saying Kitov. And then the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, Kitov. And you can see how all of those are parallel. So when we come back to this, realize as you work through the text that there's a lot going on in terms of form. When I put the material out, I tried to leave lots of places underneath. I would probably print this out and then draw lines and things on it. But Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. In beginning, he that is Elohim created, he created the heavens and the earth. And then we have 3 nominal clauses. The earth was tohu vabohu, hoshek, and then I think you have to supply the word was here, was on the face of the deep. We might even could do it this way, where you can kind of see that they're expecting you to add something. Hoshek was on the faces of the deep, and the Ruach Elohim, and I think you have to supply is here as well, or was, because this is a PL participle. The Ruach was constantly hovering back and forth over the faces of the water, and you might even do it this way, and you can see the parallelism on the faces of the deep. The Hoshek was on the faces of the deep, and the Ruach Elohim was hovering upon the faces of the waters, and you can see the parallel there. And Elohim said, this is the first of 10. What did he say? He said, Yehi Or. And what was the result of saying Yehi Or? We might even could move this over. And there was Or. God said it, there was. Think about this, the same God who says you're righteous. When God says something, it's true. And we have the imputed righteousness, and it's a cosmic microsecond until when, having seen Jesus, that declarative righteousness becomes the mystical union righteousness in heaven. You wonder if God isn't kind of foreshadowing that here. Let there be light, and there was light. Seems like Paul's picking that up in 2 Corinthians 4:6. The same God who said the light will shine is the God who shone the glory of Jesus in our lives. And maybe even John 1, in him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. The light shines. All right, and Elohim saw the Or, saw the light, Ki Tov, that it was good. I think you have to add was here. And Elohim badaled, so this is a hiphil from the word separate. Elohim caused a division, Bain ha'or, uvein ha'hoshek, between the light and between the darkness. And Elohim called to the light day, and to the darkness he called Lailah. So often you'll get that where you have parallelism, and then sometimes you have this inversion that will happen. And you could put the perfect here. A lot of times in prophecy, I'll do it that way. But you see that there is a parallel going on. Vayhi Erev, and there was evening. Vayhi Boker, and there was morning. Yom Echad, day 1. And we have that cardinal number, not the ordinal here. We do this and it will help us. And Elohim said, Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Rakia, let there be a Rakia in the midst of the waters. And oh my goodness, how much spilled ink has there been on what this Rakia is? Is it a solid dome? Is it the expanse? Is it the clouds? Well, it's interesting that the root of this word Rakah is related to violence. So when you're talking about stamping mud in the street, that's Rakahing it. It's interesting that Ezekiel has a vision of a heavenly rakia, and it's over the heads of the cherubs, heavenly cherubs, and through that rakia, that crystal rakia, Ezekiel can see what looks like the image of God. What's interesting about that is Revelation 15 with the crystal sea is probably picking up that heavenly rakia. But the difference is John is on the other side, and they're on the shore singing the song of Moses. And so you start thinking about this. If this is the violent splitting of waters, this probably is looking forward to the miracle at the Red Sea and the crossing of the Jordan by Elijah and Elisha. Perhaps even the baptism of Jesus. And then ultimately the division of the heavenly waters and bringing us safely into the presence of God. But it's starting here. Let there be a rakia in the midst of the waters. And then this is interesting. And let it be, and this is going to be a hiphil participle. Let it be a thing constantly dividing between the waters and the waters. There's this thing that God creates. It divides. It creates salvific space, if you will. We see that same salvific space in the midst of the Red Sea. We're going to see that dry land appears at the Red Sea. Dry land is going to appear on the next day. And so this is interesting. Let there be this constantly dividing thing. And it's interesting that the rakia on day 2 serves the same function that God serves on day 1, because God is the one who causes a division between light and darkness, and that's a hiphil there. And here the rakia is causing a division between the waters. And Elohim Asad, the rakia. Now, God creates 3 things in Genesis 1. He creates the heaven and the earth. That seems like it's raw material to me. He creates the great Tananim. And we're going to see, nobody knows what that is. It's used of snakes elsewhere, but it seems to be describing sea monsters. But God creates the great Tananim. And then God creates people. So it's interesting, is there some kind of distinction between bara and asa? But here God is making the rakia. And then it's a little unclear grammatically whether it's God is making the division or whether it's the rakia that makes the division. I think grammatically it could go either way. This is a hiphil. It is God causing the division in day 1 between light and darkness, but the rakia explicitly, we're told, let it be a thing causing a division, so that's a hiphil as well. So I really don't know. I probably lean toward the rakia, because it's closer and because of the preposition, but you could go with God there. Let it divide the waters which were from underneath. That's our vocabulary word for today. From underneath the rakia, and between the waters which were from on top of the rakia. Vayhi Cain. And it was so. And God called to the rakia Shemaim. So just like he called to the darkness, La Ilah, and he called to the light, Yom. Now he's naming the rakia Shemaim. So what is the rakia? The rakia is Shemaim. But notice it doesn't say the Shemaim here. In one, is God created the heavens and the earth. And now the rakia is Shemaim. So it's interesting why this doesn't have the definite article. And there was evening and there was morning, Yom Sheni, a second day. Now, one of the fun things to notice about this, God saw that it was good. When you look at this list and you look at day 1, a second day, a third day, what is the big glaring omission that you have on day 2? The big glaring omission is God doesn't call day 2 good, specifically the way he calls the light good, or the way he calls good things. But on the third day, he calls, God saw that it was good, appears twice. So what's going on? Well, it is interesting that day 2 is the day that God deals with the seas. And when we get to the end of the Bible, John seems to make the point that in new heaven and new earth there will be no seas. So is it that there's some kind of negative image here, like with the darkness is only good as it serves to be foil for the light. Is there something here? Another idea is that if this is foreshadowing the Red Sea, God's creating this space, but he knows that that space for some will end up in life, but for others will end up in death. Or the Jews think that maybe he's not completing the work until day 3 when dry land does appear, and so maybe that's why he passes. I don't know, but it's interesting when you put it out and you look at it like this. So that's what we have this week. Dive into it. Bon appetit. You guys are doing a great job. Try to do this every day. Try to read a little every day, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday.